It's on ice, right? Though
We don't have ice. We don't have an ice maker, and we don't like have bags of ice.
you don't have ice.
Ice to meet you.
Ice to meet you. You don't have an
But
ice. You don't have ice trays in your freezer.
No. Should we do that? Sarah, should we have ice trays?
We should get ice trays.
We used to have ice trays, and I think maybe one of us found that a little bit trashy, and so threw them out.
No. I don't know. I feel like they just got kind of gross after a while.
You immediately backtrack.
Okay, I'm going to leave now. You guys have fun.
Welcome to Predator Minute, the podcast that breaks down the 1987 action sci-fi classic Predator 1 minute at a time. I'm John Zabriskie.
And I am Jeff Glover.
And today we're talking minute 85 of Predator. Minute 85 you could call the Antonio Gates of minutes.
One of the best tight ends to play the game.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go like fantasy tight ends to play the game.
Right, yeah. We've all also owned him on our fantasy teams.
Yes.
Yeah.
You also have Jack Youngblood, which I don't know if there's a better name in all of humanity than Jack Youngblood.
Youngblood. I want to hear Bill Duke say Youngblood.
Oh, Youngblood. Carve your name into him. It's going to say Jack Youngblood.
So wait, who was Jack Youngblood? I don't know who that is.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, Jeff, because I am highlighting his name. And I am copy and pasting, searching like a Youngblood maniac. Glad you asked. Jack Youngblood is a Hall of Fame player who played his whole career with the Los Angeles Rams, the Rams of Los Angeles.
Like the old time Los Angeles Rams, not the
we're talking 1971 to 1984 as a defensive end.
71 to 84?
Yeah.
Damn, that's a long career in the NFL.
Yeah, especially for a defensive end, for a frontline player like.
For sure.
That's a pretty high demanding position there in football.
Yeah. Good for you, Jack Youngblood.
He played a whopping 202 games, starting 188 of those games with a whopping 151 and a half quarterback sacks.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Little Predator connection. He was the then president of the Orlando Predators from 1995 until 1999. The Orlando Predators were an arena football team based in Orlando.
Wow, nice. Orlando Predators.
Did you ever watch arena football?
I don't know if I ever actually have watched arena football or ever did watch arena football back in the day.
Okay.
No, yeah. Did you?
Yeah, I would catch it on ESPN2, the Dose, if you will.
The Dose.
It's highly entertaining, high scoring, and people are just constantly moving. Like before, it's kind of like NFL Blitz, basically.
Right. Minus the body slams afterwards.
Yeah, there might have been a few of those, but all sort of like tackling into the wall and the kickoffs going through the uprights for points, I believe.
I just envision it always looking like the football scene in Starship Troopers. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. But
Johnny Rico does like a front flip into the end zone, or one of the characters does. Yeah. There are people out there right now that are going, yes, that's exactly right.
He's in there. It's over.
So just imagine football in the Starship Troopers universe, and you'll know what arena football's like.
There it is. Did you ever accidentally flip on or run into like Australian rules football?
I have, and it's still confusing. I do like the guys who come out and point after.
That's what I was about to say. Like, there's a lot. It's sort of a cross between football and soccer and rugby, and but I always like the guys that come out and they do the double point thing. That's what I remember. Yeah,
finger guns. That play deserves the finger guns.
Right? Yeah, I love how that was an official thing. Like, finger guns.
What would be your gesture to add as a referee to a sport?
Oh, like a double middle finger or something?
I think I would do the Vanilla Ice, the VIP, which is it's basically you make your middle finger and ring finger into a V, and then you fold down your pinky and your index fingers. If you can't tell, I'm doing it right now.
Nice. That's a good call.
And that would mean 5 points because of the V.
Well done.
Thanks.
No, my double middle finger would just be maybe for like a flagrant foul or something.
Oh, yeah.
Middle, then you're in the penalty box or whatnot.
F you!
Yeah.
All right, we have some other players. I'll just run down. At number 85, this minute is the Chad Ochocinco of minutes.
Chad Ochocinco also was on many fantasy teams about 15 years ago. Yeah.
Until he kind of lost his mind and started in his own reality show, right?
Yeah. Do you think if Chad Ochocinco was in The Predator, he would take a marker out of his sock and sign the Predator's corpse when you beat him?
I thought that was Terrell Owens.
Oh, was that T.O.? Damn it.
Yeah, against the
wide
Seahawks,
receiver.
right?
Yeah, wrong wide receiver. My bad. Scratch that.
But he and Terrell were friends, I believe, and I think their reality show was a joint one.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chad Johnson, who changed his name to Ochocinco because he wore the number 85. And of course, if you know Spanish, Ochocinco just means 85,
right? Versus
Ochenta-cinco, which would be the correct last name to give himself. But who cares?
You do you, Chad. Yeah.
You do you, Chad. Nick Buonaconte, a Hall of Famer. Art Monk, a Hall of Famer. And the best name of the list, I think, is Rayfield Big Cat Wright, another Hall of Famer.
All these old players with their badass nicknames.
I know, like Crazy Legs, Big Cat, the Mad Stork.
Mad Stork, Big Cat. Yeah, like it's just a zoo out there of animal nicknames.
Pork Chop Womack.
Right. Oh, man.
I don't know if I'm playing football or having dinner. Man, I feel like we've wasted enough of the listeners' time. Let's talk minute 85. Minute 85 opens with Dutch pouring some black powder into a leaf, and it ends with Dutch rubbing mud all over his face. All over that face.
Well, we have broken this minute up into 3 distinct parts, correct?
Correct, 3 parts.
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious when you watch this minute as to why. So we'll cover the first part here real quick, which is only about 9 seconds long. And this is really just Dutch finishing up, carrying over from last minute, pouring out the black powder from his little, grenade charges.
Yes.
Pouring that black powder out into some leaves, and he's wrapping the leaf around the powder. And we just get a quick shot of that, and then the shot fades away, and we'll talk about what it fades to in a moment. But I don't know, not a whole lot to talk about here. We kind of mentioned him taking the black powder out of these charges last episode, but did you have anything to add for this piece?
The only note I had for this first part was this is the first time I ever thought about him pouring black powder, very flammable, explosive black powder, next to a fire, near a fire. You can hear the fire crackling, you can see the firelight, and he's pouring it right next to it. And, hopefully he's following Boy Scout code and pouring his explosives into a leaf far enough away from the fire not to cause an explosion and alert the predator or blow himself up in the process.
Yeah, one errant spark, and he's going to lose his hand. So I hope he turned his back to the fire here.
Back!
Mac.
Well, I think we covered that piece. Do you want to just move on to the second part?
Let's move on to the second part.
Okay. All right. After these initial 9 seconds, we fade out and fade back in. I think this is kind of the funnest part of this minute. We fade in and we see a side view, right, kind of the torso of the predator sitting next to this kind of leather-like cloth, and he pulls the cloth up, revealing 3 skulls sitting right next to him. 3 skulls, and pristine skulls, like cleaned, not a speck of blood on there. Some beautiful human skulls. He picks up one of the skulls and kind of does this little finger thing where he traces his finger across the brow of the skull in kind of a creepy sort of, almost like he's almost a romantic way. I don't know how to describe it, but drags his finger across that skull, and then we fade out to the next portion of the minute here. So let's sit here with this predator for a moment. What is going on here, John? 3 skulls.
Yeah, I mean, first off, the first thing I noticed, and I didn't write this on my notes, but he is really scantily clad, this predator. Really? He has a tiny bit of a gut, which I appreciate. Right, keeping realistic hunters in mind when they design the predator. Like he's just wearing a lot of fishnet. Along the fishnet, he's also, I don't know, slinging a few skulls on a little lanyard around his body, like little tiny skulls. And who knows what those skulls are? And there's one that looks kind of like a bird skull with the string going through the eyes.
You wonder if these are skulls from other planets, smaller beings that he has taken. Who knows? Which
is hilarious to me for me to think that he's killing off these little mammal and bird-like things and keeping their skulls. It's like, there's like a Mexican porcupine or whatever that was called back in the. It's like, why would you keep that skull, man? That's it's like a nuisance, not even an opponent.
Yeah. I have to agree with you here. I do like how they make sure the predator is body positive. You know, he's got his little gut there. Also quite muscular, and the predator is. I think he likes to get a little freaky. He's got all these fishnets on. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's just his comfort clothing there. Maybe that's his nighttime predator wear. That's his pajamas.
His pajamas is fishnet. He still has the gauntlet on, though. He still has his little whatever doohickeys on the arm.
Do you think any of these skulls are from any of our friends on the Jungle Team?
Oh yeah, of course. I think they're all Jungle Team friends. I think specifically he picks up the middle skull because it looks like it has about the same tooth arrangement as we see later in his hand. But if I'm going to go right to left, I'm going to guess pretty obviously Mac with the giant hole in the top of the skull. Mac on the far right. On the far left, it looks like that skull has a hole in his right skull, his right side of the skull. I think if that's anybody, it's kind of weird because if we call that Panchito, who we know took a shot of laser to the side of the head, we didn't see any kind of exit wound, but if he had an exit graphic wound, then it would look something like that with the hole in the side of the head. And the middle one, the one I think he picks up, I mean, it has to be either Billy or Blaine. I don't think it's Hawkins. I don't think Hawkins was worthy of collecting.
Yeah, I was going to guess Billy or Blaine there too. Yeah.
And I think it's Billy. If it's anybody, I think it's Billy because of how Billy just stood face to face with
it. And he kind of does the little finger rub here. What I kind of took this to sort of symbolize that he's just sort of infatuated with collecting these hunting trophies. And for whatever reason, this might be one of his prized possessions here. Did you interpret this in a different way at all?
Nope. I think he's just like any other collector. I happen to collect shoes, and sometimes I gaze lovingly at my shoes. Maybe not quite so passionately.
Oh, come on. You pick it up and you rub your finger across the top of it.
Yeah. And I think like, that's a nice setup there. That's a nice couple eye holes there, or whatever you think about shoes. Yeah.
I can see it. I believe it.
Yeah, but yeah, he's very much prizing this trophy, prizing this skull.
Yeah.
I have to wonder what he's thinking. What do you think he's thinking?
I think he's thinking about collecting one more. He's looking at these skulls longingly, and I think he's thinking about adding one more to that collection.
Which is exactly the collector's mindset. The collector's mindset is always, man, this is such a nice collection. You know, I have like a couple other items in mind, too, to really complete the collection. The secret is to collecting, you never actually complete the collection.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. I was a bit of a collector when I was younger. I collected music. mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I had a massive, well, maybe massive is too big of a word, but I had a pretty big CD collection when I was a teenager and then into my late teens, early 20s. And then I transitioned, and for a long time I was collecting vinyl, and I still have probably like 350 vinyl records up in my upstairs closet that I've never gotten rid of. But once you start collecting something, it can get obsessive, because you're right. Like, as soon as you buy something for your collection, your immediate thought is, what's the next thing I'm going to get?
Yep.
And it's why there's a lot of people online and a lot of the movie people that I follow on Twitter and stuff that are big proponents of physical media. And I think that's awesome. And it's cool to see all these big collections. But I decided a long time ago that I was not going to start collecting Blu-rays, like physical media Blu-rays, because it would just turn into a never-ending obsession, and it would cost me too much money. And I don't think my wife would be happy. Yeah. So I just do everything digitally, stream things. And
all right. Yeah. Good strategy there. Yeah. On the collecting side of things. I made a couple notes. One was the way he holds the skull. A lot of times, the way he holds the skull really reminds me of how Chewie is looking at C-3PO's disembodied head in Empire Strikes Back, when Chewie finds C-3PO totally disassembled, as he had been shot by who knows what, a stormtrooper or another droid, kind of off screen. And Chewie finds his body parts, brings it back to their little apartment there in Cloud City, and is looking at the skull pretty intently. And you don't know what Chewie's thinking, because he doesn't speak English and he doesn't even say anything in that scene.
Good job finding a Star Wars connection. You're good at that.
Thanks. I stretched it a little bit. I happen to watch a lot of Star Wars.
I like it.
Thanks.
I noticed in the notes you mentioned a Shakespearean connection or resemblance here, and I had thought of that too, or just sort of thought about like the classic Shakespearean picture of the character holding a skull in his hand.
Yes.
Yeah. You are the English teacher. Do you want to elaborate?
I've never taught Shakespeare, but back in my student days, it was definitely my favorite of the Shakespeare plays, Hamlet, where in Act 5, Scene 1, so we're in the last act of the play. A lot of this is, if you know your Hamlet, your tragedian layouts, that things are pushing towards a grim ending. But in this kind of grim, almost comedic scene, Hamlet is coming across the skull of a former royal jester when his dad was king, and he gives a little speech. And I'll plug in David Tennant of Doctor Who fame reading the lines, because he does a fantastic job of it, and it's kind of like a modernized version of it too, which is nice.
This skull, sir, was Yorick's skull, the king's jester.
This?
Ian, that.
Let me see. Yes. Poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times. And now, how abhorred in my imagination it is. My gorge rises at it.
But there's a lot of analysis that goes into what a character is thinking when they're holding a skull. Some people would analyze this scene as Hamlet, or in this case, the Predator, thinking about mortality, or thinking about who this person was in a past life. It could be a reference to someone who used to be alive, who the audience is supposed to relate to. In the Shakespearean era. This would have been possibly a Elizabethan comedian named Richard Tarleton, who Shakespeare would have known through comedic performances. And of course, in this movie Predator, we're thinking about the team members and how the Predator is just collecting them one by one, like a hunter.
If my English teacher had connected Shakespeare to Predator, I would have paid a lot more attention in class.
Yeah. I think when I teach it, I would have to show a little scene of a Predator holding a skull for sure.
course. Yeah, I think it's now mandatory viewing.
I think it's how you connect to the kids these days. You show something a little modern, a little Arnold. Yeah.
Can Arnold do Shakespeare lines?
Sure, he would say what I have it written right here. Alas, poor Billy, I knew him. A fellow of infinite jest. Most excellent fancy. Yeah. And it goes on kind of like that, and people are like, man, this is taking forever because he has not memorized his lines. He's just reading off the script.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh my gosh, everybody. I can't believe that Jeff and I were talking about Arnold and Hamlet, and for some reason that night when I was recording that with Jeff, it just did not instantly come to me that Arnold had that Hamlet bit in Last Action Hero, which is one of my all-time favorite Arnold moments in film, when he's in the little black and white fake movie that Danny is watching in the theater, and he's doing all the action bits and a couple of the lines from Hamlet. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug that in here in the middle of the podcast. So enjoy the Arnold Hamlet connection.
And so he goes to heaven.
Don't talk, just do it.
To the same villain sent to heaven.
Hey, Claudius. You killed my father. Big mistake.
Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. And Hamlet is taking out the trash.
Stay thy hand, fair prince.
Who said I'm fair?
No one's going to tell this sweet prince good night.
To be or not to be? Not to be.
Good old Arnold.
All right. Where are we at here? Are we moving on to the third part?
Yeah, take us to the third part.
Okay, so after we hang out with the Predator and his skulls, we fade once again back to Dutch at his little camp. Back. And here we get some gratuitous mud application. Mm-hmm. We have a sort of slow-moving camera from right to left, and Dutch is applying mud to all parts of his face, his cheeks, nose, up on his forehead, and he's really mean mugging here. Like, he's getting his kind of game face on, his battle face, and I have a couple questions about this, but I guess that brings the minute to a close right there. This is the whole second half of the minute. This is from like second 25 all the way till the end of the minute. So almost 35 seconds of gratuitous mud application here with some nice tunes playing in the background.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, right away, this is a oneer. I called it the muddy oneer that goes from about the 25-second mark into the next couple of seconds to the next minute. So we're talking about a 37-ish second oneer of just Dutch putting mud on his face. And it does kind of a fake out of a fade out, fade in, where in previous minutes, they've kind of faded in and out of transitions and showing a little bit of a bow making montage where they put the tree in front of the camera. But in this case, it's like a little thin branch and the scene doesn't change. It doesn't cut away or anything like that. It's just him staring straight ahead, rubbing the mud all over his face. Really slowly, really methodically.
Really methodically, that's the right word, yeah. Mm-hmm. The same way a soldier would apply some face paint in a helicopter, say, as you're getting ready to go do battle.
Yes, I was totally meaning to put that on my notes because that's exactly what I thought of when Billy is putting on his face paint in the Long Tall Sally Chopper ride.
Right. So we get a little callback there that he's getting ready for a battle of a different type, and this time he's all by himself. Now, my question here was he's applying all this mud. It's dark outside, clearly. Is his plan to put on all the mud now and then like take a snooze? Or is this early morning before the sun has risen and he's getting ready for the day and he's awake and going to be awake?
I think we're finally out of that notorious dusk. Like we've been in the dusk for I don't know how long. Movie time. It seems like it's been a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he hasn't slept at all. He hasn't eaten at all. Something you brought up a couple minutes ago. I think he's just ready to do battle. I think he's ready to really take it to the Predator. I think he's being really efficient with his time and very efficient with his energy. If you want to save some energy, maybe put on your mud really slowly and not rush through it.
Yeah, he's getting the second wind here. He's getting all prepped up and ready to go. Yeah. And he really does have like a mean mug going on. Mm-hmm. Kind of that squinty eyes. His lips never come apart, kind of pursed lips the whole time. Mm-hmm. Really kind of a classic Arnold face here.
Yeah, and I think, like we've been saying all movie long, the less spoken or thought words in a movie like this, the better. And we don't have anything. This is another dialogue-free minute. I think a lesser movie would be putting thoughts into his head or like flashback clips of like the team and joking around and then dying because, he's thinking about something. He has a mean mug on and perhaps he's thinking more than just, I have to kill this predator. Maybe it's something about his fallen friends.
Yeah. If this was a direct-to-video action movie, there would definitely be some like quick cut flashbacks to all his comrades getting killed right here.
Yeah.
But smartly, instead, they just let us sit in the silence and the score that's playing and just kind of be with Arnold as we, the audience, kind of gets ready for the climax that's about to come.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Do we have anything to say? I was going to ask you, what's going on with the score here? Does this track has this track come up before? Or is this the first time we've heard this track?
We've been hearing this track for the last couple of minutes. It's called Battle Plans. And it goes throughout this minute. It's doing a lot of work through this minute because as it cuts from Dutch to the Predator back to Dutch, it does have to add some of the sound effects that we've heard before with the Predator, namely that kind of staring into the void kind of sound, that kind of like kind of sound when the Predator is examining the skulls and just loving those skulls before it cuts away from whatever he's going to do for those 15 seconds. And then back to Dutch with just the main score called Battle Plans driving the movie. And this is the way I described it. It's kind of militaristic beat with this like kind of tune, kind of like on the snare drums mixed with like those all throughout the movie long high horns that
It is very militaristic. You're right. Like it sounds like the type of music you might hear in a Civil War movie or a American Revolutionary War movie, where you have a battle group that's hunched down and they're getting, dawn is coming and they're getting ready to head out. It's very, very similar to that feel.
Dawn is coming. The redcoats.
The redcoats are coming.
Shoot them in the eyes. Cover ourselves in mud.
Oh, still good here.
The script calls him covering himself up in mud the earthen camouflage. Earthen camouflage. I like that little descriptor right there. I had to look up the word camouflage because I love my etymology. I love finding out the roots of words. And camouflage, it says, comes from the Italian and the French. The Italian camouflare, which means disguise or deceive, and the better French root camoufler, which means the whiff of smoke in the face.
Oh,
camoufler.
It's a very French thing to do.
Oh yeah, totally. I can picture French, a French person totally whiffing some smoke in my face.
And then someone throws a baguette at your head.
Oh. And they say, because you are French. You're not French. It gives a little root. This is when I Googled camouflage. It gives a little root description. It says late 19th century in sense disguise or concealment. French from camoufler to disguise, originally thieves slang. Ooh, you have to love something like that. Came from thief talk. I love it.
Love it. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I did not know the root of camouflage.
It says the military sense originated during the First World War, but we're not talking about military sense right here. I think we're talking good old fashioned, like primitive sense of camouflage.
Camouflage. Absolutely.
You couldn't see me. I was camouflage.
I was camouflage.
Camouflage.
All right. Well, have we done it?
I think we've done it. The last note I had was, I think we've almost done it, because the last note I had from McCommentary was him just saying that they sent the first cut of the movie with the missing pieces all storyboarded in to the studio, and the studio approved, said, go ahead, keep making the movie, make the remainder of the movie. What's the problem here in my commentary is that I don't know what scenes he's talking about or what was missing. Maybe that comes up in the next minute or two. So hopefully I can fill that in with the things that didn't fill in. But if I had to imagine, if he doesn't say so later, I have to imagine that the pieces he's talking about missing when they did the first cut were all the things with the final Predator design in there.
Yeah, I'm sure. And maybe some of the stuff like, well, I guess some of the special effects, of course, have to be added in later, but some of the stuff with maybe the matte paintings that we talked about, or any of those types of shots.
Sure.
Yeah. Who knows? Cool, man. All right. Well, I think we did this minute justice.
Total justice.
Total justice.
Total justice.
Shall we get into some weekly recommends here?
Sure. Yeah. Why don't you take us down the recommend hole first, Drinky Poo?
I'll take you right down the old recommend hole. I'm going to do a quick recommend / shout out to a website that I've talked about several times, fthismovie.com. And
you said you wouldn't.
I said I was going to do a quick one.
I lied.
They are kicking off when this episode comes out. It's probably going to be well into June, but they are currently doing their month-long celebration of exploitation, grindhouse, and drive-in movies. They call it June-sploitation. And it's pretty fun. They have a calendar up with different categories of movies to watch every day. The idea is you watch a movie in that category, and then you can go to their website and engage in conversation on the message boards about what you're watching and see what other people are watching. And if you're a geeky movie nerd and you like these types of older, trashy, sleazy, grindhouse movies, it's a pretty fun event. So if that sounds like something that would appeal to you, head on over to fthismovie.com. The other thing I will recommend, I've been, with all the things going on in the world right now, I've been watching a lot of comfort TV. And my wife and I recently started rewatching the short-lived but hilarious TV show called Party Down. Have you ever watched Party Down, John?
Oh, that's something I've always been meaning to watch past the first episode. But yeah, I remember seeing all the people I know now who showed up in that show. I'm like, oh, I know who that is. That is.
Yeah, I think it's been almost a decade now since it was on. It was a Starz original series, and it stars Lizzie Kaplan and I'm blanking. Ben White,
Adam Scott, Jane Lynch.
Jane Lynch. And then tons of little small bit parts that are played by famous comedians and comedic actors that you would recognize now. And it was a short-lived show. It only lasted 2 seasons. Like I said, it was a Starz original series, but man, it is hilarious. And I think it didn't last because it was on Starz, didn't have a huge audience. And then a lot of the people on the show became famous during the show. Like I know Adam Scott left the show to go do Parks and Rec. Jane Lynch leaves the show in the middle to go do Glee, I think. Yeah. But anyway, it is well worth watching. It's every episode is the setup is that Adam Scott and all this cast of characters, they work for a catering company, and every episode is them doing a different catering job for some different event. Just the dialogue, the jokes, the cast of characters. Besides Adam Scott and Lizzie Kaplan, you have Martin Starr, who was in one of the kids from Freaks and Geeks.
And then he goes on to Silicon Valley.
Yeah. You've got Ken Marino, who was from like The State. and a bunch of the other guys from the state occasionally pop up. It's an incredible cast, and you wonder why this show wasn't more successful. And I think it was just a moment in time on an obscure cable channel that a lot of people didn't have. But anyway, you can stream it on Hulu, or if you have a Starz as part of your cable package, you can on demand it from Starz, and it's been really, really fun to rewatch. It's hilarious. So there's my official recommend. Party Down,
dude.
Yeah, super fun. Very, very much comfort TV.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you have something to recommend for us this week, John?
I do, and I texted you right away. I don't know if I had finished the movie or if I was in the middle of watching the movie, but it was such a strong recommend for the show. I had to recommend it to you first. That's how you know it's really strong. It's a movie called Hotel Artemis with Jodie Foster, Batista, Jeff Goldblum, Zachary Quinto, Sophia Boutella, and a few other people you would know right away. Oh, Charlie Day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a couple other people. Oh, the guy from Us, or This Is Us. Sterling K. Brown. Just a fantastic post-apocalyptic movie where, wow, it's almost fitting now. I watched this, I think, a week ago before all the protests and riots happened. But it takes place in the future, and there's some riots going on, and kind of a dystopian setting, I guess. They don't give a lot of background or information what's happening in the outside world. But the main set piece is this hotel, the Hotel Artemis, run by the nurse, Jodie Foster, in this awesome character role. Who in the hotel is meant to be this place for the wounded to come to heal up and then get out, basically. The best way I could describe it to someone else is like, think about if you had a functioning hospital in the middle of Escape from New York, in New York, that was really just meant to heal the injured and then boot them back out to the chaos. Like, this is the hotel that would exist in a modern day setting. I think it's maybe a 2018 movie. Might have that wrong.
Would you describe this as like an action film, or?
I mean, kind of. It's more like a lot of suspense leading to, much like I was talking about with Hamlet, towards this last act where you know all this stuff has to happen, and somewhere or the other there's going to be some kind of fallout with characters clashing and with motives intersecting. It didn't have the best reviews I saw later on like Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, but I was pleasantly surprised and entertained while watching this movie. I don't want to give a lot away other than kind of like the setting I was giving, but I really like the character work, and I like the setting, as it were. I'm a fan when dystopian movies do it right and don't necessarily tell you everything that's going on, and they really focus on the character work. And I thought this movie, Hotel Artemis, really hit that spot for me.
Nice. I'm gonna have to check it out. You texted me when you watched it, and you were like, I think you'd like this, and I put it into my Prime Video queue, and I have not yet watched it, so I will do that.
Yeah, you say I was the second person to recommend that to you?
Yeah, someone, I can't remember who, but someone else, like a day before you recommended it to me, also said that they thought it would be something I'd like. So that it must be true. I
was looking at the Junesploitation list right now and seeing if it fit in any of those. Honestly, you'd have to go, actually, Free Space or Lethal Ladies.
Oh, Lethal Ladies, nice.
Lethal Ladies, yeah.
For Lethal Ladies, I kind of want to watch an old Cynthia Rothrock movie. Do you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Am I thinking of Gymkata? Was she in Gymkata?
Oh, she might have been, yeah. She was like in the 80s, like direct-to-video action star. She's like pretty badass, but never really got real famous. But if you look up, if you just like go on YouTube and be like Cynthia Rothrock, like best fight scenes, there's some great videos, compilations of her, and she's like kind of amazing. She's pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
She was not in Gymkata, but she was in a whole bunch of other movies, like starting in '85 and still making them today, it looks like.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah, she was apparently like a 7-time world martial arts champion.
That's what it says on her Wikipedia.
And then transitioned to movies. Pretty awesome.
And once divorced. That's not a movie title, that's just personal fact.
Right.
Cynthia Rothrock stars in Once Divorced.
In the second act, she collects alimony.
The Alimony Collector.
Oh man, I watched the sequel to The Debt Collector. That's just called Debt Collectors.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to that.
I was a little disappointed by it, I have to admit. Yeah, I wanted a little bit more from it.
Was Scott Adkins okay in it?
Yeah, he was good in it. Like the acting and the characters were good, but you know, when in those movies, I kind of look forward to the different like set pieces and fight scenes, and I always like it when they kind of get creative in their fight scenes and throw in a couple car chases here and there. And there wasn't a lot of that. Like there were some good fight scenes, but they all kind of seemed to be the same. And it was a lot of just sort of like Scott Adkins faces off one-on-one with another person, and they're doing their fighting stuff, and the choreography is great and all, but it just wasn't as creative or interesting as I had hoped. And I honestly kind of got a little bored with it. So yeah, I don't know. If you wanted to watch it, I would just fast forward to each fight scene and enjoy that, and then move along. I don't know. I was expecting a little bit more out of it. Maybe my expectations were too high. Maybe now that I've talked it down, you'll watch it and enjoy it because it'll be better than you thought.
I'm looking at Scott Adkins Wikipedia, where it has like kind of the filmography halfway through, and it says 2020. Good news. Maybe you didn't like that, but he has a whole list. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movies out this year, including Debt Collectors. So you might want to check out any of those other ones.
Yeah, I will. Hardest working man in show business. My God.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen him actually like work during his movies, you know he's working.
Yeah, he's awesome. I had nothing to take away from Scott Adkins. When you make so many movies, there's going to be some duds here and there. So it wasn't as fun as I had hoped. Revenger was better. Go watch Revenger or Avengement. That's also good. I really liked Avengement. And
I liked Avengement too. It's so cool to see someone like him do a turn like that.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Okay.
All right, we went off there on a little recommend tangent.
Man, Scott Adkins, he would take apart the Predator. That would not even be fair.
Ooh, yeah. I'd love to see Scott Adkins fight the Predator. That'd be great.
He'd be like rubbing KY on himself just to make himself hotter. He's like, come and get me. Yeah, and that kind of cool fake Cockney accent he does in Avengement.
Right. He's rubbing Vaseline all over himself.
Exactly. Make himself slippery.
Yeah.
I'd watch that. We would watch that. We would probably break that down minute by minute.
Absolutely.
Be a very short movie. Anyway, speaking of movies, Jeff, where can people find you? What a terrible segue.
I'm on the Twitter. Jeff Glover on Twitter. Carl_Hungus314. Come follow me there.
My name is Carl Bin Expert.
Where can we find all things Predator Minute, John?
Oh, geez. You'll find us on the Twitter if, that's what's interesting to you. Some movie talk. Then good. You'll find us at Twitter. You'll find us at Predator Minute. You can email this show, predatorminute@gmail.com, or you can join the ever-growing, always-loving Facebook group, the Predator Minute Listeners Palapa.
Target the center of the Palapa.
Target the center of the Palapa.
Target the center of the Palapa.
Yeah, we'd love to see it, and we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so for all things Predator Minute 85, I've been John Zabriskie.
And I am Jeff Glover.
And until next time...
Stick around.
Stick around.
Stick around.
Stick around.
Stick around.
Stick around.
Stick around.